take 15 lunatics, put them all in Lamborghini Hurricanes and send them to Dragon Trail Seaside to take on the infamous Chicane of Death. And what do you get? Well, the answer is some bloody good racing. And welcome to the Lamborghini Super Trofeo, round 5, which unfortunately for me is the first round I'm jumping in at, but thanks for an invite from my good friend Chunky. I was looking forward to some great racing. Now, as you may have guessed from the intro, we're here at Dragon Trail Seaside, and well, the Chicane of Death is part of that track. Say no more. But as I was also new to this series, I was new to the guys driving it, so wasn't familiar. And after seeing that little incident on lap 1 of quali, I was a little bit hesitant, especially of that guy in front, Winty, who, should we say, didn't have the best qualifying and race start, but we'll get into that later. Anyway, qualifying is qualifying, and at this point we'll jump ahead towards the end of it. Now, for those of you that follow my YouTube channel, you may or may not know that I suffer with a recurring back injury, which sometimes causes me to be in quite a lot of pain. Tonight, unfortunately, was one of those nights. So much so that with 3 minutes left on the qualifying clock, I had to pull over, and at this point I was contemplating pulling out of the race. However, thanks to the wonders of tramadol and naproxen, I decided to carry on. It did, however, kind of ruin my qualifying. See, at the time, I was in a quite respectful 7th, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I could have done a lot better, but I think I probably had 3, maybe 4 tenths in me. But we'll never know. Anyway, this unfortunately put me down to 11th, which wasn't fantastic, but it is what it is. In fact, considering the start of the race, dropping those few extra places was probably a good thing, which you'll see in a minute, because let's skip from qualifying to the start of the race. And we're underway. Myself in 11th, I have OSX in front of me and Winty behind me. Now, very quickly, for these particular races, one make, we're all on the same soft tyres with no tyre wear and all 1 times fuel, so everything is nice and even. In fact, a little bit too even, as everybody in front gets a bit tangled up. And quite frankly, how I managed to get through there with no damage, no penalties, and still managed to make up 2 places, well, bit of a miracle really, but I'll take luck every day. And by the way, Winty putting it into the dirt there, he was using up all his luck just keeping it on the track. Now, as we get to the bottom of the hill, you can see that Winty's luck ran out at this point, which meant I managed to move up a place. But now we come into a Chicane of Death, and quite frankly, I didn't expect anybody to try and throw an overtake up the inside going into the chicane. In fact, it was lucky that Ollie didn't take both of us out there, because you just don't pull overtakes going through the Chicane of Death. You just don't. But we were lucky, we managed to come out at least facing the same way, although I think Ollie did end up picking up some damage when I pinched him against the wall. Now, as we look ahead now, you can see that Garuda and Chunky are pulling in, taking their Joker laps. And by that, for those of you that don't know, in this series you have to, regardless of damage, come into the pits at least once. It's just one of those rules, and it helps throw in a little bit of strategy into the race. Now at this point we'll jump ahead to lap 3, specifically the Chicane of Death in lap 3, where I go through, well, to be honest, not badly, although I possibly did hesitate a little bit. However, OSX behind me hadn't hesitated. In fact, he'd got a great run through the chicane and was able to keep quite a bit of speed ahead of me, which gave him the opportunity to pull a very clean and very well executed overtake on the final bend. However, we're all in equal machinery, and so slipstream is a big part of this, and Dragon Trail has a great long straight heading down into the first turn, so I thought I'm going to go for it. However, OSX, to be fair to him, kept the defensive line well, kept it clean and kept ahead of me. God damn you, OSX. And now is a good time to jump ahead to the end of lap 5, because firstly, it was quite obvious I wasn't catching OSX, and secondly, 2 guys behind had caught me, and now it was a 3-way battle, which could be better described as a 3-way drag race as we went down the start-finish straight and headed towards the first corner. Now, with some admittedly sweaty palms and a little bit of bravery on the late braking, I managed to stay ahead. At least for now. Because if we jump ahead again, you can see that on the previous lap it had been a 3-way battle, but now it was a 2-way battle between myself and Garuda, and unfortunately for me, he just did it better and pulled a fantastic overtake into the first corner. The only saving grace for me was, unfortunately due to Adnap having an off, the place I'd lost to Garuda, I now managed to gain back. Technically. Now, if we jump ahead to lap 8, despite the fact I'm putting in blue sectors, I was still losing time going through a chicane. This is something, however, that the car behind me, Thingamajig, did not do. In fact, in a carbon copy of OSX's overtake of me, Thingamajig kept his speed through the chicane, accelerated down the straight and got ahead of me at the final corner. It was fairly obvious that even though I wasn't crashing through the chicane was definitely my Achilles heel. Now, at this point, we're going to jump ahead to the end of lap 10, which is where I decided to make my pit stop. As you may notice, briefly there, I was up into 4th, and I'd love to be able to say that was down to my fantastic driving and some brilliant overtakes, but unfortunately it wasn't. It was basically down to the fact that other people had made their pit stops, and now I made mine. Well, it was a whole undercut scenario. What I gained, I now lost, and unfortunately I also lost another place straight after coming out of the pits. However, luckily Ben went far too deep into corner 1, lost a lot of speed, whereas I managed to get a good run through the corner, keep my speed, and I got that place back very quickly. Now all I had to do was hold on to it. And now we're going to jump ahead to the end of lap 13, where as you can see Thingamajig is coming in for one of their stops, which means that I move up from 7th to 6th. So at least in that respect the undercut did work for me. However, I'm now in a bit of a no man's land. You see, I'm pulling away from the guys behind me, but I'm not anywhere near quick enough to catch up to the guys ahead of me. And things start to get, well, a little bit lonely, at least for me. And now, I kid you not, we're jumping ahead to lap 24, which as you can now see, also happened to be the last lap of the race, as the race's 40-minute timer had counted down, and I had spent the last 10 laps in that weird sort of no man's land I said about. I was too far ahead of the guys behind me to have to worry about them, but I was way too far behind the guys in front of me for them to have to worry about me. So the second half of this race had been a bit of a double-edged sword. On one hand, yes, I'd had a nice peaceful race and it hadn't been stressful, but on the other hand, it would have been nice to maybe fight a little bit more for some places. All that was left to do now was cross the finish line and take my 6th place. And let's have a quick look at how the other guys finished up. And in first place, take him a win and take him a trophy for who can showboat the most on the finish line is Sinister. But congratulations mate, good win. And coming up to take second place we have OSX Thunder. Congrats mate. And coming up to take the final position on the podium is Garuda. And there you have it, our 3 winners. And that completes my first race in the WRC Super Trofeo, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. If you've enjoyed it, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons. It really does help out the channel, and I will see you with more action from GT7 and WRC very soon. For more great videos like this one, follow this link. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.